Hello, beautiful ghouls. Welcome. This is Brandy. I'm here with my sister, Jody.
Hello.
So I have some facts to start off with. I got a bunch of them. So, first one, if you think you can't love Mr. Rogers anymore, just wait.
Oh, no.
All of the sweaters Mr. Rogers wore on his show were hand-knitted by his mother.
Oh.
He said he loved wearing them because they always made him think of her.
Oh
my God, I love that man. That's sweet.
Have you watched that movie with
No.
Tom Hanks? I haven't either.
I'm scared too. I don't want to cry.
I know. That's what I was thinking.
I did watch a documentary about Mr. Rogers, and he was a very religious man, and the reason why he started Mr. Rogers was because of the violence in the cartoons that he was seeing.
Oh,
So he was like, I want to make something that children can watch that's just pleasant.
Oh.
I know.
And it was, and we loved it.
It was, yes. He's the best.
I used to watch it every day after I got home from school.
Yeah, it was always, and even when I got home from school, it was on. So yeah, oh my gosh, it was the best. Next one, over 290 people have died climbing Mount Everest since 1922. Most deaths occur because of avalanches, and not all bodies have been recovered.
Oh, yeah, they're all still up there.
Yeah.
They use them as, like, markers now.
It's creepy. Have you seen the pictures?
No.
Oh my gosh. There's there's the guy in the red coat.
Oh
and
my gosh.
a lot of them, they just sat down and died. It's really sad.
Well, you know what?
I mean, they did
Don't
it to
go
themselves.
climb up the fucking mountain then.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, it's... Why? Why?
You got me. I don't know.
I don't understand. I don't get it.
I know. I will never understand
No.
anything like that. Next one. The original Star-Spangled Banner was sewn to the floor of a brewery in Baltimore in 1813 by Mary Pickersgill and her daughter. That's weird.
Sewn into the floor?
Sewn on the floor of a brewery.
Like they were sitting on the floor sewing, or they...
That's what I picture.
Okay.
Unless it was like on a thing and then they sewed that thing to the floor.
I don't know. That's what I was picturing.
I don't know. We'll just leave it like that.
Okay.
All the paint on the Eiffel Tower weighs the same as 10 elephants. It gets repainted every 7 years without closing to the public.
Wow.
That's a lot of paint.
Yes, it is.
Next one. The youngest pope in history was Pope Benedict the Ninth. Maybe? IX? That's the ninth, right?
I think so, yeah.
Who was 11 years old at the time of election. He is also the only person to have been the pope more than once.
11?
11 years old. That is insane.
How do they become the pope? Don't people, like...
I don't know.
Do they vote on it, or...
I don't know. Isn't it up to, like, the archdiocese or whatever?
I have
like,
no
people
clue.
get nominated or whatever?
Who would nominate a little boy to be the pope?
I'm not going to make the comment I was just thinking about.
Oh.
I'm just going to move on.
Yeah, let's just
I don't
move
know.
on.
I don't know. We should know because we're Catholic, but I don't know.
Yeah, well,
Okay, next one.
Okay.
Paul McCartney was only paid £1 for performing at the 2012 London Olympics closing ceremonies. He willingly donated his performance.
Aw.
That's nice. You'd think the London Olympics would be able to afford it. Mm-hmm. But if he willingly donated it, that's nice. Like he needs money. Next one. For nearly 60 years, Texas didn't have an official state flag between 1879 and 1933. During that time, the Lone Star flag was the active but unofficial flag. That's weird. Though most think it's Italian, pepperoni is an American invention. The first use of the word dates back to 1919.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. That's disgusting meat. So, yeah, American.
It's yummy meat.
It's yummy, but it's like
Fat.
Isn't it mostly fat?
Yeah,
It's not.
Of course it is. Look at us. We're all fat.
Next one, an estimated 50% of all gold ever mined on Earth came from a single plateau in South Africa. Next one, in 1992, a shipping crate containing 28,000 rubber duckies fell overboard. They washed up around the world for the next 20 years.
That's cool.
I know. That is so adorable. Could you imagine?
Little rubber ducky.
Nobody knows how the Academy Awards came to be referred as the Oscars. The earliest mention was 1932 and was made official in 1939.
That is weird.
That is weird. Next one. All new FBI special agents and intelligence analysts are required to visit the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum.
That's probably good.
That's good, yeah. There are 30 times more trees on Earth than there are stars in the Milky Way. It's estimated that there are about 100 billion stars and 3 trillion trees.
Interesting.
Yes. Which, unfortunately, after all the fires that we've had this year,
gosh.
that number's probably gone down.
2020, woohoo!
Yeah, did I tell you I saw a post that on Facebook that was like, you guys, what if 2021 is like, hold my beer?
Oh my god.
Oh my god, we're all gonna die. Oh god. Okay, medieval chastity belts are a myth. A great majority of examples now existing were made in the 18th and 19th centuries as jokes.
Well, seriously,
I
who's
know.
gonna wear a chastity
Seriously.
belt? Aren't they like metal or some shit?
Yeah. Okay. The thumbs up sign is believed to have originated from Chinese pilots. It was used to communicate with the ground crew before takeoff. Next one. 50% of apartments in Los Angeles don't come with a fridge. This is legal, as fridges are not considered an amenity, and therefore landlords are not required to provide one.
I watch a lot of HGTV,
Yeah.
and there's quite a few houses, I don't know exactly where, but it's like they never come with a refrigerator.
Mine wouldn't have come with a refrigerator if I didn't put it in my contract.
Mine did.
Because they told me they were going to leave the fridge and the microwave, and they ended up leaving the fridge and the washer and dryer. Because they forgot.
That's definitely better.
They forgot what they told me they would leave. So I was like, well, actually, it said you were going to leave the fridge and the microwave, which I thought they were going to take the washer and dryer and give me a microwave, but they left everything and bought me a brand new microwave.
Nice.
I know, it was great. Okay, next one. Volvo invented the 3-point seatbelt, then gave the invention away for free. They decided it was too important of an invention to keep to themselves.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. More people should be like that.
I should buy a Volvo.
Yeah.
I won't, but I
Yeah.
should.
Next one, it takes longer to drown in salt water than in fresh water. Because of this, around 90% of drowning occur in fresh water.
That's interesting.
That is, and scary. I wonder why it takes longer.
I don't know. Are you more buoyant in salt water?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. Next one, Baltimore is the largest independent city in the U.S. with a population of 621,849, meaning it is not part of any county.
Okay.
Next one.
That one was boring.
If I read these, I probably would have deleted that one. In 2007, Scotland spent £125,000 devising a new national slogan. The winning entry was "Welcome to Scotland."
Oh my gosh.
Scotland needs to get their shit together because we had a
Yeah,
crappy
they
one about them
do.
last week.
That was
too.
the... What was it?
What was that one?
Shit. It was something, their greatest failure or something.
Oh, yeah,
Like that.
I don't remember, but it was not good.
Well, they failed again.
Welcome to Scotland. £125,000 to figure that out.
Oh my god.
Seriously? Next one, the original Star Wars premiered on just 32 screens across the U.S. in 1977. This was to produce buzz as the release widened to more theaters. Which, that's so smart. But man, they had to have banked on the success of it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's a risk. If the first 32 screens sucked,
yeah,
that wouldn't be good.
That would have been it.
The first service animals were established in Germany during World War I. References to service animals date as far back as the mid-16th century. Interesting. The British pound is the world's oldest currency still in use at 1,200 years old. The pound has been an identity as a symbol of British sovereignty. When tea started being sold in bags, originally it was intended to be removed from the bags by customers, but they found it easier to brew the tea still in the bag. Yes. That is easier.
Yes, it is.
Next one, Wonder Woman has a black sister, Nubia. She was sculpted from black clay like Diana was sculpted with white clay. Since 1497, the United Kingdom has printed their laws on vellum made from calf or goat skin. They continue to do this in order to uphold the tradition.
Interesting.
What's vellum?
I just told you.
Well, it said vellum made from calf or goat skin. So I was like, paper, kind of?
Kinda, yeah.
Interesting. In World War II, Germany tried to collapse the British economy by dropping millions of counterfeit bills over London.
Jesus.
The longest cricket test match lasted over 12 days between England and South Africa. It only ended because the English team would have missed their boat home.
Oh, God.
That's crazy.
Why would you keep playing?
Seriously. When did they eat? Or sleep? 12 days? You think they took turns?
Or
That's super
use
weird.
the bathroom?
Yeah.
Or...
Next one, the hand and footprints in front of the Chinese theater tradition started accidentally when silent film actress Norma Talmadge stepped on wet cement.
That's cool.
Next one, Jupiter has 69 moons. A few are 12 to 37 miles in diameter, but most are barely 1 mile in size. Jupiter itself is 317 times the mass of Earth.
Wow.
Have you ever looked up a YouTube video that compared the size of Earth to other planets?
Mm-mm.
It is terrifying.
Really?
Yeah, I'll show it to you when we're done. The only difference between kosher salt and table salt is the grain size. Kosher salt is smaller, and they both come from underground salt deposits. So kosher salt's just the bigger, right? What did it say?
It says
Smaller. Oh. Well, that's kind of dumb. You can just make that yourself. Right? What would be the point?
I don't know.
Interesting. Next one. The hottest temperature ever recorded in Washington State was at Ice Harbor Dam at 118 degrees Fahrenheit on August 5th, 1961. That's 47.8 degrees Celsius. 118?
It was the water?
The hottest temperature ever recorded in the state was at the Ice Harbor Dam.
Huh. That's not comfy.
That is insane. That's way too hot.
Yeah.
Next one, Kesha was an extra in Katy Perry's music video for I Kissed a Girl. Katy had some friends of hers in the video, among those a then unknown Kesha. Next one, the Postal Service got its name based on the fact that they originally called USPS to send each other music tracks because of conflicting schedules.
What?
The Postal Service got its name based on the fact that they originally used USPS, USPS, to send each other music tracks because of conflicting schedules. I don't know.
That makes no sense to me whatsoever. The United States Postal Service.
Yeah, I think they would send each other music.
Send who?
The postal workers would send each other music back and forth.
Oh.
And they used USPS to send it to each other.
Okay.
Because of different schedules. I don't know.
Whatever. That makes no sense.
Next one. 30 of the first 31 popes were murdered. Most of them were martyred, but not all causes of their deaths are known.
That's weird.
Yeah. Next one is horrible. Turkey vultures use defensive vomit to rid them of any disturbing animal. They propel their vomit up to 10 feet.
Ew.
That is horrible.
That's gross.
And they eat dead animals.
Ew.
No. Ew. That is gross. Next one. The military has used silly string to detect tripwires in Iraq. Before entering a room, they can squirt it inside. If it hangs in the air, it may reveal a wire. That's insane. Great.
They spray it in the room, and then they spray it at their buddy. Oops, I didn't mean to do that.
That stuff is highly flammable.
Yeah,
That's
messy, too.
Oh, yeah. I hate silly string, actually. Next one. At one point, 50% of the CDs produced worldwide had an AOL logo on it. The cost for the marketing campaign was in the billions, and it worked.
I remember getting those in the mail.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, I used to do that. What was it? The Maxwell House CD thing?
Uh-huh.
I used to do those. I had a shit ton of CDs.
Yep. Me
oh,
too.
my gosh.
Now I don't have any.
I know. I don't even know what happened to mine. I must have gotten rid of them at some point. Next one. A mason in 1700s Jerusalem left his wooden ladder behind after doing some work on a church, and now it can't be moved without the agreement and permission of 6 different Christian leaders. Isn't that cool? You understand that one?
No.
A mason in the 1700s in Jerusalem left his wooden ladder behind after doing some work on a church. So he just accidentally left it behind.
Oh, and it hasn't been moved since then?
Now, yeah, and now it can't be moved without the agreement and permission of 6 different Christian leaders.
Huh.
So, like, this guy, that's so funny to
Yeah.
me. Like, he just accidentally left his ladder.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Now if that happened, people would be like, get your damn ladder off my property.
Who let their shit? Yeah, people suck. Next one, the Lego Group is the world's most powerful brand. There are more Lego minifigures than there are people on Earth.
I believe that.
Yeah. Which made me wonder, like, I wonder how much their stocks are.
Oh, gosh. I don't know.
I wonder. Next one, Thomas Edison invented an electric pen in 1876 that was later adapted to become the first tattoo machine in 1891.
Cool.
Yeah. Thanks, Thomas Edison. Next one, in the AD and BC system was not proposed until 525 AD by a monk. However, it was not widely used until the 9th century. Next one, China has a series of underground tunnels running 3,000 miles long. They are used to store and transport mobile intercontinental ballistics missiles.
Ooh.
Crazy. Next one. Scientists discovered sharks that are living in an active underwater volcano. Divers cannot investigate because they would get burns from the acidity and heat.
Ooh. That means them sharks got some tough skin.
Yeah. Ugh.
I wouldn't want to meet up with
The
one of
ocean
them.
is just the scariest thing to me.
Yeah, I don't like it.
I'm just the simple fact that right there it says we literally can't see the whole ocean Ever?
Mm-hmm.
We won't ever be like, what the fuck is under there?
Don't want to know.
No. Oh my gosh. That is scary. Next one, your tonsils can grow back if there was tissue left behind during the removal process. Sometimes it's accidental, other times left on purpose.
I still have mine.
Yeah, me too. Which that's weird because I've always had throat problems. You would think they would have taken them out already. Anyway, the voice actor of SpongeBob and the voice actor of Karen, Plankton's computer wife, have been married since 1995.
Aw.
I know. I wonder when SpongeBob started. I wonder if they met because of SpongeBob.
I don't know.
That'd be cute. Next one, manatees can get frostbite in water below 68 degrees Fahrenheit or 20 degrees Celsius. Their fat is not designed to insulate them from the cold.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, that's weird. Next one, spacesuits take 5,000 hours to make. They cost $1 million, weigh about 110 pounds, and have 11 layers of material.
Gosh, could you imagine
No.
trying to walk in one of those?
No. I would, just pray for no gravity. If I was wearing that.
I'd end up falling over and I'd never get back up.
Yeah, you'd have to be really strong to deal with that. Next one, there is a statue of Tesla in Silicon Valley that radiates free Wi-Fi. It was done as a homage to his vision for wireless communication.
That's kind of cool.
Next one, when George Washington died, Napoleon Bonaparte of France gave a personal eulogy and ordered a 10-day mourning period for France. That's nice. More than 90% of survivors of the 9/11 terror attacks delayed evacuation to save their work, shut down computers, change shoes, or visit the bathroom.
What?
People didn't know what the fuck were going on. They didn't know what was going on. They were not worried at all. And on the PA system, they were like, "Oh, just stay at your desks. Everything's all right. Don't move." A lot of people were like, "Fuck you, I'm getting out of here." And a lot of people that stayed died. Next one, several of the facts on Snapple caps have been found to be outdated, incorrect, or exaggerated.
Were people really taking them seriously? Come on.
Probably. Well, we're taking these seriously. That one could be wrong. We don't know.
I don't take these seriously.
Yeah, I don't know if these are right at all. Next one, it's Australian tradition to eat sausages at polling places on election day called democracy sausages.
What?
For many communities, this is the biggest fundraising event of the year.
Oh my gosh.
Democracy sausages.
Maybe that's what we need to do. Get people to go out and vote.
That would work. Totally work.
Anything free.
Yeah.
Anything free.
Yeah. People would be all about it.
Of course, I still wouldn't go, but still.
Next one, a woman was elected to the House of Representatives 4 years before women even won the right to vote. Ridiculous. Next one, during 1943, U.S. officials imposed a short-lived ban on sliced bread as a wartime conservation measure. It lasted less than 3 months. Next one, there is a geocache on the International Space Station placed in 2008. It has been since visited 4 times by other astronauts. That's cool.
Yeah.
Next one, the total weight of all air on Earth is 11 quintillion pounds.
Quintillion?
Quintillion.
That's a new one.
Mm-hmm. And how do they know that? Next one. After the release of the 1996 film Scream, which involved an anonymous killer calling and murdering his victims, caller ID usage tripled in the United States. That was right around the time where that came out, too. So
Yeah.
that probably had something to do with it. But yeah, everyone
Man,
was
at
scared.
the time, that was... The beginning of that movie was awesome.
It was terrifying.
I know.
It's great. I don't know, that... It just... kids these days will never know what it's like to not know who's calling you. And that is one of the most terrifying things, especially if they keep calling you.
Yeah.
And you don't know who it is. You just answer it. Insane. But yeah, kids, things were so much more terrifying back when the internet wasn't taking over. And
Yeah, but we weren't terrified though, because that was normal.
well, no, but if someone, like, you could totally prank call people and they would never know it was you. And just the simple fact that if someone called you and you keep hanging up on them and they keep calling you back over and over and over, and that, like, they just breathe on the phone or whatever, it's scary. Because back then you had no way of knowing who was calling.
And then Star 69 came out.
Yeah. And caller ID came out.
And then caller ID, yeah.
And now, if it says unknown, actually, if it says anything, you just don't answer it.
I don't.
If it's not programmed into your phone, you don't answer it.
Yep.
And nobody even calls anymore because everyone texts.
I know.
Yeah, this world is weird.
Yeah.
It's totally different. It's very sad. Next one. When Blackbeard captured ships, many of the African slaves on board would go on to become pirates. When he died, nearly 1/3 of his total crew were former slaves.
Aww.
That's awesome! He took them and, well, he put them to work, but he probably didn't. He probably didn't force them like assholes would. And I bet once he died, they were free to be whatever they wanted to be. So that's wonderful. Next one, Scrappy-Doo, widely considered to be one of the most hated characters in fiction, has not appeared in an animated Scooby-Doo production since 1988 due to audience backlash.
Poor Scrappy-Doo.
He was an asshole.
Yeah, I don't remember much, but...
The only thing, I mean, I remember it, but you hated him. Everyone hated him.
Yeah, I remember I didn't like him.
Yeah.
I don't remember why or, what happened in the cartoons.
Well, I don't remember that, but yeah, everyone hated him. Okay. Where was I? Oh. We just talked about this one. There's a town in the Oklahoma Panhandle called Hooker, and its slogan is, "It's a location, not a vocation."
I like that.
Next one, Alexander Hamilton was shot and mortally wounded by Aaron Burr on the same spot that his son had been killed 3 years before by the same set of pistols.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Why do I have cats all over me all of a sudden?
I know, they just shut up. Next one, Barry Manilow wrote many famous jingles for companies like McDonald's, State Farm, and Band-Aids.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either. If it's true.
Like a good neighbor.
Yeah, that one. You think he wrote, "I'm loving it"? You think that was his big contribution? I think Barry Manilow probably wrote those in the 90s, I would think. Because those jingles back, like Band-Aid had a long song.
Yeah.
And McDonald's did too. So it was probably back in the 90s, I would
Probably.
think. Next one, in ancient Greece, throwing an apple to a woman was a symbolic declaration of love, and to catch it was to show acceptance of that love.
What if they weren't good at catching?
That's what I thought. Could you imagine her embarrassment when she didn't catch it? I didn't mean anything.
You didn't tell it right.
It's your fault. I hate you. Maybe that's why that stopped.
That's just stupid.
Stupid.
Here, have an apple. I love you.
Oh, so if she didn't love you, you think she just watched it go by?
We're like, shoot it away. No.
Like, bat at it? Oh my gosh. Okay, next one. Of the top 20 most watched TV broadcasts in the United States, 19 were Super Bowls, and the other was the 1983 finale of MASH.
Oh. Yeah, MASH was really, really popular.
Really popular.
I vaguely remember Daddy watching it.
Yeah, I've never actually sat down and watched MASH before. But yeah, everyone liked it.
I remember growing up. I hated the shows he watched.
Oh,
my
too.
God, I hated them.
He did that on purpose. He didn't want us in there. 100%. He had 3 girls. He did not want us in there.
He would watch MASH, and he would watch Star Trek, and Looney Tunes.
Yeah. The only thing, I remember going in there and watching Cold Case Files with him. He would watch those and cartoons.
Do you remember when he got into his thing where he was watching America's Top Model?
No. What?
He would faithfully watch America's Top Model.
Why am I not surprised at all?
I never. It's like, it was like a periphery thing. Like,
yeah.
Like he would say something and I'd just like be like, okay.
Have you ever watched America's Top Model?
Yeah.
I actually really like that show.
I liked it too.
Yeah.
But that was just weird.
It is weird. That's so funny. I remember one time, it was one of the very rare occasions when he was actually home on the weekend, and I was playing Mario Brothers on my Nintendo in my room, and he sat down on the floor next to me and was like playing with me, which is weird.
Mm-hmm.
But man, he farted, and it vibrated the whole floor, scared the shit out of me. I jumped like a mile. And that's what I remember when Daddy was playing with me. That was it.
Memories.
Aw, family. Okay, I'm going to move on. Next one, there's an insurance policy issued against alien abduction. Around 50,000 policies have been sold, mainly to residents of the U.S. and England.
Are you serious?
Oh my gosh, people have too much money, apparently.
Oh my gosh.
Next one, Rednex, which is spelled Rednex, the band, who remixed and popularized Cotton Eye Joe, is not Southern, but Swedish. They all have Southern-sounding stage names.
That's funny.
Not funny.
That's a fun song.
It is. It is. Next one, there's a company in Japan that has schools that teach you how to be funny. The first one opened in 1982, and about 1,000 students take the course each year. I doubt if that works.
Yeah, I think you're either funny or you're not.
Yeah, it's like natural. The insurance company backing the payouts for the show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire sued them for being too easy. I wonder if that's accurate. I remember watching that show when it first came out, though, and it would be like a question far down on, like, you know, you'd win a lot of money at that point. And, you know, I was young when that came out, and I would know the answer.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I mean, very rarely, but sometimes. So I kind of get that. Next one, chocolate can help stop tooth decay. Specifically, parts of the cocoa bean can thwart mouth bacteria even more.
Well, there you go.
It's
Get my chocolate out.
science.
And that one's definitely true.
Absolutely. If all these are fake, that one is not. Next one, Marie Antoinette's last words were to her executioner after accidentally stepping on his foot, saying, quote, "Pardon me, sir, I meant not to do it."
Oh,
That's sad.
polite to the end.
That's a lady.
Yes.
Next one, 3 inches of ice can support one person on foot. 4 inches can support a group of people single file. 36 inches can support up to 110 pounds of weight. And my last one, the world's smallest mammal is a bumblebee bat, weighs about the same as a U.S. dime. Native to Myanmar and Thailand, these bats are endangered.
Aww.
Tiny bats.
Baby bats.
All right, those were my facts.
Okay, I got some ghost stories.
All right.
When my family moved into our home in 1995, all of us were weirded out. The vibe in the house was off, and certain rooms, like my parents' bedroom, felt uncomfortable. It was like the air in that room was heavy. My dad, who never believed in ghosts, didn't even want to sleep in there. As the years went on, I never felt like I was alone in the house, but the room that scared me the most was our attic. As I got older, we redid the attic, and it became like a second-floor apartment. The attic was broken into 3 areas. The front room was mostly storage, the second part was where I slept, and the third room was a walk-in closet. The third room always gave me the creeps. It had windows that overlooked the driveway and main road, and every time I parked my car, I would avoid looking up at the window because I had the sinking feeling that I'd meet someone's gaze.
Ew.
At night, I'd wake up at 2 a.m. for weeks on end for no reason. I'd always have this feeling like someone was watching me from the third room, their body barely peeking out from behind the wooden door frame. I just knew it was a man. I could just feel it. I kept all my experiences to myself. After about a year of living up there, I found myself in a weird conversation with my mom. My mom had always been open about her ability to see ghosts ever since she was a child. She wasn't scared of them, but she believed in them more than the average person. One night, as we sat on her bed, she looked at me and asked, "Do you ever see the man upstairs?"
What?
I met her gaze and asked, "What man?" She smiled and said, "The guy who lives in the attic. I see him every time I pull into the driveway."
No! Oh my God! Oh no. That is scary. How could you live in there?
I don't know.
Oh no.
I was usually the only one in my family who ever visited my grandparents at the cemetery. It was usually my tradition to place calla lilies, my grandmother's favorite flowers, on her and my pop-pop's joint cemetery plot every Easter. About 7 years ago, I was babysitting my nephew a few days after Easter. While we were out, I stopped off at the gas station to purchase some discounted flowers to place on my grandparents' grave. I hadn't been able to stop by on the actual holiday. When I pulled into the cemetery, I was one of maybe 2 or 3 people who were there. The cemetery is set up in multiple sections with 2 other cars parked all the way in the back away from where I was. My grandparents' plot was relatively close to the main road and where I parked my car. I grabbed the flowers and my nephew and walked over, having a few-minute conversation with them both and introducing them to my nephew, who was about a year and a half old at the time. The cemetery was silent. After realizing my nephew had a wet diaper, I scooped him up off my knee and began heading back to the car. While I was carrying him, my nephew started bursting out in laughter. I mean, he was hysterical. I turned my head to see him waving at the gravesite by folding his fingers over, almost as if he were getting ready to make a fist. I paused because that's exactly how my pop-pop used to wave at us.
Oh my gosh. That's so sweet.
It was summer vacation and I was about 14 years old at the time when this ghostly encounter happened. My father worked from home but had to run a couple of errands, and after meeting him, he left me home since he wouldn't be out for longer than an hour. We lived in a very safe neighborhood and all the doors and windows were locked. While he was gone, I jumped in the shower and had my music up really loud. It wasn't unusual for my dad to knock on the bathroom door if the music was getting too loud or if he had to use the bathroom and needed me to finish up. As I was finishing up, I heard fists banging loudly against the bathroom door. "Almost done," I yelled back, singing the rest of the song that was playing. I hopped out, dried off, and put a robe on and opened the bathroom door, telling my father that I was out and the bathroom was all his. No answer. I looked in the kitchen and his office, not there. I peeked my head through the window to see his car wasn't in the driveway. When he got home, I asked him if he stopped by for a few minutes in between his errands, and he hadn't. 10 years later, my husband and I were at my parents' house while my dad was in the hospital to straighten up. I was outside talking to a neighbor when my husband heard banging on the bathroom door. He had apparently yelled out that he was almost finished. I wasn't even in the house.
What? Weird.
I guess there's a ghost that likes to bang on the bathroom door.
That's rude.
It's not really a ghost story as much as it is the lack of a ghostly presence. For the 20-plus years I lived in my childhood home, I had never once felt comfortable. Every time I had my back to the stairs leading up to the attic, I felt this impenetrable gaze looking down at me. Every time I walked into my parents' bedroom, I felt like the closet door would swing open like a ridiculous scene out of Poltergeist. Every room felt thick, unbearable. I never felt like I was alone, even when I was alone. It always felt unsafe. It always felt crowded. That is, until my mother died in the house. On the morning of her death, after her body had been cleared, it was the first time the house felt open. It was like the house had taken a new breath. To this day, I don't know if my mom's spirit demanded that those in the house leave, or if she was the reason the ghosts were there in the first place. My mom died about a month and a half before what would have been my parents' 39th wedding anniversary. At the time, my dad refused to sleep in their bed, opting instead for a recliner he had in their bedroom. He was sleeping with a very thick and heavy floral comforter, one that was way too cumbersome for even a human to hold for too long. At about 6 a.m., he woke up because he was cold. The comforter was nowhere to be found in the bedroom. His 2 dogs were asleep at his feet. He got up and walked into the dining room to find the comforter folded up. It had a huge indent in it like someone was sleeping in it. While it could be explained that the dog curled up in the middle of the night, what can't be explained is how it got there. Even more so, why it was in the exact spot my mother died in.
Oh my gosh, that's creepy.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine waking up in the middle of the night and like your blanket's gone.
Yeah.
That's
weird.
I'd be so confused.
I know.
That would suck. Especially to find it in a whole different room. Folded? No.
Yeah,
oh
no.
My gosh. That's creepy.
My husband and I were packing to take a vacation on the 1-year anniversary of my mother's funeral. We wanted to be somewhere different. About 2 weeks prior, we had gone out to dinner for Valentine's Day. After we were finished eating, the restaurant gave me a heart-shaped balloon to take home with us. The balloon hung out in our living room, full of air and confined to one corner. The circulation in our apartment isn't great, and there are only 4 or so vents spread out across the apartment. Our ceilings are high, and the door frame to our bedroom is low, so any piece of furniture we take in and out has to duck from that particular area of the house. My husband and I were in the bedroom planning our outfits to bring with us on our trip when the balloon was suddenly at the entranceway. For 2 weeks the balloon hadn't drifted from the living room, and now suddenly it was standing at the doorway as if someone was holding it. We both just stopped and stared as the balloon lowered itself to enter the room and floated to a spot that was catty-cornered to our bed frame. "Touch it," I said, which my freaked-out husband replied, "You touch it." The balloon didn't float back up to the ceiling. It stayed in the center as if still being held onto. "What if it's my mom?" I asked. My husband looked over at the balloon and said, "Margaret, if that's you, bring the balloon to us." The balloon moved instantaneously, floating right to my head. I even have photo evidence to prove it. About 15 minutes later, after we were focused again on packing, I looked over at the balloon. It was perched on my nightstand next to a photo frame. "I like what you did with the balloon," I told my husband. He looked at me and said, "I didn't touch it. It was just sitting there on display, still full of life and full of air."
Oh my gosh. That's so wonderful. I love it.
Okay, so that's all the ghost stories I had, which
Okay.
wasn't much. So I went ahead and these are beginnings of horror movies that were really good that people still talk about.
Oh, okay.
So the first one is Scream.
Obviously, we just talked about
Yep. That's what I was thinking when we were talking about it. I was like, I know something you don't. This 1996 classic contains a slasher film formula that is almost impossible to replicate. Up until this point in cinema, characters in horror films were mere pawns in the hands of the killer. They had no awareness of how to truly survive a slasher film because they never once considered that they were in one. The late, great Wes Craven threw that idea out the window. Every character in Scream is so self-aware that it borders on satire. From Sidney Prescott to Randy Meeks, they are all horror aficionados of some form. This is the foundation that set this film apart from any other horror movie that came before or after it. In what could only be seen as a coping mechanism, there isn't a single murder that doesn't include joking and speculation on what will happen next, based on their knowledge of older scary movies. So how could an opening scene possibly convey this meta-complex idea to an audience that thinks they are walking into a standard horror film? Or words, let's play a game. They are uttered to the legendary Drew Barrymore in the first scene of the film when she gets a phone call from Ghostface. The first time the phone rings, she's making Jiffy Pop popcorn. Wrong number. Or at least that's what she thinks. But the calls never stop, and the tension grows every time the phone rings.
Oh my God.
The musical score stays subtle to the point where all you can hear is the fear in her voice and the Jiffy Pop bursting out of control. A metaphor for the rising tension. He taunts and teases her while she snubs him, hoping her boyfriend arrives soon. It's only after we hear those words that we truly understand the seriousness of this call. Someone is going to die, and fittingly, it is all dependent on her ability to answer trivia questions about scary movies. The opening scene is one of the longest in horror movies, standing at 12 minutes and 55 seconds, with each of those minutes the audience feels stress, anticipation, and terror. Gutted even. The tone for the entire film is set, and the phone calls will never be the same again.
Hell no.
That was awesome. I remember.
Oh, yeah.
You know how my memory is.
Yeah.
I remember when I saw that first scene. Well, first of all, it's Drew Barrymore.
Absolutely.
You know,
she doesn't die in the first scene.
That is the first time in movie history where they take a huge star and kill them at the very beginning of the movie.
You never expect that.
No.
It's brilliant.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, what?
I know. I'm like, there's no way. She got stabbed. Oh crap.
Yeah.
She's gonna live. No, she did not.
She did not.
Yeah,
no.
it was crazy. But yeah, when the first few times it's all nice and they're flirty and all playing, then he's like, "You hang up on me one more time, I'll gut you like a fish."
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, that's not good. And then she's freaking out, and you're freaking out. And then she dies. You're just like, oh my God, it's the best.
It was awesome. The next one is Halloween.
I just watched that.
When does the introduction of Halloween begin? Is it the eerie opening titles where we hear the creepy score with the pumpkin on screen? Or is when we see a house appear and where we'll soon learn is Haddonfield, Illinois? Apart, they leave a sense of intrigue. Stitched together, they build a sense of discomfort, a feeling that we need to have to be able to see things from the perspective of Michael Myers. He's just a small boy in the opening scene of Halloween. Things in the house seem normal. There is no discernible motivation for the darkness that inhabits him. In other horror movies, the killer has a sinister backstory that almost permits them to kill. They're either neglected or abused. Sometimes they're abandoned. But from what we can see in this opening scene, Michael is loved. It's Halloween night and his sister stayed home with him. His parents at the end of the scene are visibly worried about him. This moment is imperative to see and understand because without knowing how he grew up, we don't know that no one in this film is safe. As a child, he just randomly decided to kill his sister. We don't know quite how young he was until he walked out of the house with the knife and a blank stare on his face after the murder. His parents run to him with worry and unease when they see the blood on his hands. They don't know what they're about to see because they weren't expecting it. Unlike the parents, for a brief moment, we got to. A few minutes earlier, we saw his young hands grab a large knife with that unnerving score in the background. Why was he going to kill? We don't know. But from that moment on, we knew he was going to kill someone, and it was going to be his sister. From there, we got to hear and see the images that would recur countless times throughout the entire film. Screams, nudity, knife thrusts, his heavy breathing, relief.
I actually thought that because, it was just Halloween, so obviously I watched Halloween. And when, the very first thing you see is the mask holes. Because it's his point of view. And I was actually thinking that, I bet that's the first time they'd ever done that, too.
Probably.
Because that's very impactful.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's great.
And they're right. When you see his little hand grab that knife, you're like, what the fuck is going on?
Is he carving a pumpkin, I hope?
Yeah. Okay, the next one is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The 1974 film, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, is a horror masterpiece, but it's the opening to the 2003 remake that stands out when it comes to opening scenes. Starring Jessica Biel and R. Lee Ermey, this remake takes the carnage to a whole new level, but it's the narration by John Larroquette that creates the genuine feeling of horror that lasts throughout the film. The intro isn't the hippie van full of people heading to a Lynyrd Skynyrd concert. It's old footage of a crime scene and this resounding narration. The film which you are about to see is an account of the tragedy which befell a group of 5 youths. It is all the more tragic in that they were young, but had they lived very, very long lives, they could not have expected, nor would they have wished to see as much of the mad and macabre as they were to see that day. For them, an idyllic summer afternoon became a nightmare. For 30 years, the files collected dust in the cold case division of the Travis County Police Department. Over 1,300 pieces of evidence were collected from the crime scene at the Hewitt residence. Yet none of the evidence was more compelling than the classified police footage of the crime scene walkthrough. Opening scenes don't get much more visceral than those words we hear. They evocatively tell us exactly what's about to happen, spoilers and all. We are about to witness relentless death and horror. It's a torment knowing that there is little hope for the people that we will soon be going on a journey with. The fact that this opening makes you think that crime scene footage is real only adds to that anguish.
I agree. That is the best thing you can do, is make it look as real as possible.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's like we talked about when we thought the Blair Witch was real when we went and saw that movie. That's what made it so good.
Yeah. Yeah, if we would have known it was fake, it wouldn't have even compared to the experience we had. Yeah, I love it when they do that.
Next one, Nightmare on Elm Street, which is my favorite.
Yes.
Yes, another Wes Craven classic has made it onto the list. Craven knew better than any other director that without a forceful beginning, a horror film would just not be that frightening. Stress and anxiety are feelings that the audience needs to be feeling at all times throughout the film. If it isn't felt right away, the viewer might not gain enough empathy for the characters that is needed to keep them invested throughout the entire film. In Nightmare on Elm Street, Craven gains the audience empathy quickly by setting the opening scene in the one scary place where every person has been, a nightmare. That's what makes this film so terrifying and sometimes even harder to watch than other horror movies. We've all been there and we all fear it. Tina Gray has the first nightmare in this film. She acts in this film as a false protagonist. Similar to Drew Barrymore in Scream, her role isn't to live. It's to show us just how scary and capable the killer is. The killer in this film is Freddy Krueger. From the beginning, we can only see that he's a man with a menacingly burned face wearing a fedora and a gloved hand with razors. We meet him in the boiler room, but it's painfully obvious that Tina has already met him somewhere else. Like all the other characters, Freddy's haunted her dreams for days before finally killing her. The disturbing reason behind why he waits is because he could. He wants to haunt and toy with his victims before killing them. When someone can control your dreams, there's no escaping them, and he knows that. As we follow Tina into the boiler room in this nightmare of hers, we hear the sounds of machines dragging. Dense mistiness is seen on the screen, providing us with a sense of unease and intrigue about what they're shrouding. Haunting sounds reverberate off the walls of our subconscious as we witness Freddy's iconic knives rip through fabric like skin, and then she wakes up. Her mother checks on her and points out the inexplicable slash marks in her nightgown. It wasn't just a dream.
That's scary.
And the last one is It.
Ooh.
The last film on this list is also the newest, and the opening scene is probably the most iconic. There have been several iterations of it throughout the years. It's based on a book by Stephen King and was adapted into a campy miniseries before it was made into a movie in 2017. Aspects of the story change in each version of this horrifying tale, but the beginning is always the same. A little boy comes face to face with an unnerving clown. His name is Georgie, and the day he met Pennywise the clown was the last day of his life. All someone needs to say is, "Hiya, Georgie," and the scene flashes before their eyes. It's that memorable. It's a dark and rainy day. Georgie's older brother, Bill, doesn't want to play with him, so he makes Georgie a paper boat to play with instead. Aside from the weather outside, there is no sense of danger. Georgie is glad to be splashing in the water with his boat and chasing it as it races down the street in a gush of rainwater. As background music grows more menacing, the tide of water picks up speed and Georgie loses pace. The boat goes where all rainwater goes, down the storm drain. His stress is felt and he fears disappointing his older brother by losing the boat made for him, so he goes to retrieve it. What he doesn't know is that a dark entity that's been haunting Derry for centuries is also in that storm drain. He has taken the shape of a clown, but is capable of taking on the shape of whatever scares you the most. Clowns are the most terrifying to children, and children are what Pennywise loves to kill most. Nevertheless, Georgie goes to that ill-fated drain to retrieve the boat and meets his demise. The clown has his boat and won't give it back to Georgie unless he reaches in to take it. Georgie almost knows better, but in the end refuses to disappoint his brother. Sadly, Bill never sees Georgie alive again.
Well, that's because the clown makes you think that he's just a nice clown. And then he's not. Was that it? All right. I went back to my go-to, which is time slips.
Okay.
So my first one, as a teenager, I lived in a house in which I dreamed of the future. Periodically, I would have these hypersensory dreams in which colors seemed unusually vivid, and it almost felt as if space were tangible. These dreams tended to manifest within a week. The incidences I dreamed were so specific, it was hard to view them as coincidences. For example, I dreamed about someone breaking their leg on a hike and having to be helicoptered out. I dreamed about children playing leapfrog at a wedding and a particular child skinning his knee. These are things that happen within days. I also dreamed of a location I had never seen but visited 20 years later. It was strange. It only happened there. At the next house, I had similar dreams, but they were all of the past. So I have no way of knowing if they were real or not. But the most interesting thing happened in our very first house when I was little. I used to see a woman walk into my bedroom fairly regularly. She always wore a blue bathrobe. Her hair was long and messy and a reddish brown. I didn't see her face because she was usually turned away. I used to mistake her for my mom. She never spoke to me. She just moved around the room making pantomime motion as if she were picking up and putting things down, mostly near my bookcase. She always moved in the same areas. She didn't scare me. I was young and didn't know that you weren't supposed to see these things. The day I realized that you weren't supposed to see people who weren't really there, she vanished. I always thought she was a ghost, but years later, as an adult, I ended up living in that same house. The house does not feel haunted. It feels clean and refreshing, airy and light. I gave my daughter my old bedroom. I put her changing table where my bookcase used to be. Obviously, I changed her diapers there regularly. It often was early morning or the middle of the night. One day I realized I was wearing the same blue bathrobe. My hair was long, dyed a reddish brown, and uncombed. I looked like my mother, but not exactly. I had my back to the rest of the room. I think I saw myself when I was young.
I knew that was coming. I knew it.
I love these stories. Okay, next one. I was driving to pick up my son from school. As I rolled slowly down a residential street, I saw a black cat walking past a tree. Then suddenly, and this is the only way I can describe it, the sky itself wrinkled up as though it was being folded in half. I remember how beautiful the sky was that day, a pale shade of purple peppered with clearly defined clouds edged in pink. A second later, the wrinkle disappeared, and I saw the same black cat walk past the tree again. Its movements and appearance were identical. I'm used to seeing strange things all the time, but this one perplexed even me. During this time, I never stopped driving, about 25 miles an hour, because it happened so quickly. I arrived at my son's school, and the day proceeded uneventfully. I've also had multiple circumstances where I've been late leaving for work or an appointment, and somehow arrived on time or even early when there was no physical way this was possible given the distance. It's crazy. I mean, things just happen to people, I think, sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, you're just going about your day, and all of a sudden, it's crazy. Next one, when I was about 13, I spent my summer holiday, as usual, in the English countryside and used to cycle from the village where I was staying to the local town. We usually did this journey by car, and I was amazed how much more detail I noticed from a bicycle. This particular day, I spotted a small village in the trees to one side of the road together with a small church. I thought this was quite wonderful. I'd never noticed the small group of dwellings before and thought about cycling through on my way back from town. As I cycled back later, the houses were still clearly visible through the trees, but due to the lateness of the day, I pushed on home. A day or so later, I passed along the road with my mother in our car and tried to show her the village I had discovered, but there was no sign of it. I cycled back and looked again and again on several days, but to my confusion, could not find any trace of either a village or any group of buildings or a farm that I might have mistaken for a small village. Even a recent ordnance survey map didn't show any buildings that could explain what I had seen. In the end, I had just assumed I had been mistaken and had somehow misremembered what had happened. About 20 years later, I was in a local pub about 3 miles up the road from where this happened and came across a Victorian ordnance survey map from the area and was looking at it when I saw a ruined village and church marked where I had seen the houses about 20 years before. The site of the village was no longer known on the more modern map, but this older map showed quite clearly the site of a small village and a church. Could this have somehow explained what I saw? I just wish I had tried to cycle up to the houses to have a closer look. That's weird.
That would suck. I would be so mad at myself.
Yeah, I would be really disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Next one, I was on my way to work going 55 or so down a crowded length of a four-lane expressway. It was midday and congested, but moving steadily. Suddenly, a car in front of me slammed on its brakes. I didn't have enough time to stop. I slammed on my brakes, but it wasn't good enough. I was going to hit them. I braced for the impact, and at the exact moment that I knew the car was going to slam into the back of this other vehicle, I was suddenly several yards behind them again. I felt like I had blinked my eyes and had traveled a few seconds into the past. My foot was on the brake, too. Shaken and terrified, I started braking immediately. The car in front of me slammed on their brakes again, but because I was already braking, it was fine, and I came nowhere near hitting them. I've only ever told my boyfriend. I called him right after, and he accepted it, but probably thinks I'm nuts. I wouldn't believe it if it hadn't happened to me. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Next one, it was 1975. I was in an old house in San Antonio. A couple of college friends lived there, but the house was about to be condemned, so they were throwing a huge boozy party one last time. Rumor had it that the house had been a bordello, but college kids and creepy rumors inevitably go together. Anyway, it was old, creaky, and huge. I went upstairs and crept down the hallway with multiple doors on each side. I opened the door, and there was daylight, and I saw two men arguing. I couldn't understand what they were saying, but I sensed it was about a woman. Apparently, they could not see me. Both men were in their late 20s or early 30s. One man was Latino, the other man had blonde hair and a shirt collar was open, and sort of hanging weird. I later learned this was probably a detachable collar, although I had never heard of such a thing. The Latino man pulled out a knife, and suddenly the blonde man had a gun in his hand and shot the other man in the chest. Then it was night again, and I could hear the party going on downstairs.
Ooh, that's creepy.
That is creepy. Just to see something from the past?
Yeah.
And, oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine. Next one, in 1981, I was visiting a friend in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. We went to a bar located in the basement of an old historic hotel. I was not drinking alcohol. Suddenly, the bar was gone. I was in a quiet room. In the room were 2 tables that looked like hospital exam tables. There were white sheets on the table, and the room felt very clinical and sterile. I don't recall seeing anyone in there, just the rooms with the 2 beds. And then the bar returned. I asked my friend, I was pretty excited, what he knew about the history of the place. Was it ever a hospital, I asked. But he knew nothing about it. This was in June. I couldn't stop thinking about what I had saw, so in late October of that year, I wrote out something much like what I have just shared, and put it in an envelope addressed to the local historian of Eureka Springs, Arkansas. I also enclosed a stamped self-address envelope. All the small towns had local historians, I figured. I mean, what did I have to lose? A couple years passed. I moved to another apartment. Then one day, my former landlady called me to tell me I had a letter arrived at my old address, which was odd because she had never contacted me before. I drove over to pick it up and was momentarily confused when I saw it because it looked like my own handwriting. Of course it was, and I had entirely forgotten that I had ever sent it. Inside was a letter from the local historian. Somehow it had made its way to her. She explained that she wanted to reply months ago, but the letter had fallen behind a dresser. She had just found it and wrote back immediately. In the letter, she said that the basement had served as a makeshift morgue during the Civil War, and that the room I had been in had served as an embalming room. She was really excited and asked me to come back sometime and tour the town, but I had learned what I wanted to and just dropped it. Again, another just seeing something from the past. It's crazy. Let's see. It happened in the Valley of Kings in Luxor, Egypt. It was 1996, and we were at the Ramazzeum, maybe? A wonderful sight of toppled statues, ancient ruins, and a still-functioning Nilometer. I don't know. I walked out onto the excavated foundation of something, just a scraped-out square of sand surrounded by what looked like the remains of a low wall. I stood in the center, feeling the heat of the blazing sun, throat dry and raw from the dust. Suddenly, I felt cool water trickling over my feet. I actually jumped from the unexpected feeling. The water level didn't quite reach my ankles. Above me were banners of colored cloth stretched across a pergola. There were also fluttering flags along the sides of the structure. The floor was at an incline, and the wide stream of water flowed from the elevated side down. And people were seated in low chairs and benches, talking and enjoying the feel of the cool water. It was obviously the most refreshing thing I've ever felt. Then it just went away. I was back in the unshaded sun, and it was actually a little emotional because the moment was gone. That's crazy. Next one. Sometime around 1974, I was driving from Madison, Wisconsin to Bayfield, Wisconsin, a distance of something more than 300 miles and a 6 or 7 hour drive. As is my habit even today, whenever I can do so, I kept off the primary highways in favor of country roads. I had made the same trip several times before and had a consistent route. Because I had made the trip before, I knew 3 things: which roads I was going to take, how long it would take me to get from one to the other, and the total time for my trip. On this day, however, my best laid plan went all cattywampus. At some point during the trip, I suddenly found I was on a northbound road I had not intended to take, a road I had never taken and would not have taken under any circumstances. I also found that I had lost something more than an hour. That is, given the amount of time that had passed, I should have been an hour farther north than I was. Sounds almost like an alien abduction, but I don't have any mysterious implants in my body, and I don't remember having a sexual encounter with a female alien. It does sound like... That's what it says.
I don't think that's usually what happens. It's obviously a dude.
Maybe a 12-year-old dude? It sounds a lot like an episode of Highway Hypnosis, but for several reasons I don't think it was. With Highway Hypnosis, you do lose a sense of time passing, but in this case the amount of time exceeds typical Highway Hypnosis loss of time. I was not on the road in which I was familiar. I did not remember driving during that loss of time, and I did not have a peripheral knowledge of anything that was going on around me. I was not aware of anything. Furthermore, when you're driving the back roads of Wisconsin, you must stay alert because you never know when you'll be faced with a slow-moving tractor pulling a manure spreader. I don't like this story. If you're not paying attention to that situation, you'll soon literally be in the shit. Next one. I had 2 time slips. The first one was when I was 11 years old. I was looking through my house window at home, hoping to see my mom. Instead, there was a man wearing brown trousers and a white shirt and was standing next to the kitchen sink. Then I noticed that the kitchen was different, very old-fashioned, with what I now know as a Belfast sink. I entered the house only to see that the man had disappeared and the kitchen was back to its 1979 norm. As a young boy, I was convinced this was a ghost. Fast forward 39 years, and I was walking up a street after parking my car to go buy some lunch and noticed a very old elevator with metal folding doors in a small factory. I had not even noticed the factory before, so I walked over to investigate. There was a man operating the elevator dressed in a brown work coat, similar to the one you find in hardware stores, and a few people already in. The operator said to me, "Are you getting in or what?" I did jump in, and the elevator went up a floor, and everyone alighted. The operator then asked me if I was getting off. "No thanks, I need to go back," I replied, and then I alighted back on the ground floor and made my way to my car. After crossing the road and opening my car door, I turned back to the factory. It was no longer there. Instead, there was a row of shops and cafes. This was in broad daylight during my lunch hour, and certainly not a dream. Only then did I realize that this was similar to the man at the sink when I was a child. I just could not stop thinking about it. That's weird.
Why couldn't he just say he got off the elevator?
I don't know. I think it was foreign.
Oh.
He said mum instead of mom.
Oh.
So. I said foreign like it was a dirty word. I didn't mean that. It's just different. Okay, next one. I'm a high school teacher. Today in one of my classes, something kind of interesting happened. First of all, we were all on block scheduling in the school where I teach. That means we have 4 periods, 1 through 4 one day, and then 5 through 8 on a second day, and it rotates like that. So the kids I saw today I hadn't seen since Monday. However, when the kids in my second class began showing up, I felt like I had just seen them yesterday. I don't think I said anything, but then the kids from my third class began showing up, and one boy walked in and said, "I feel like I was just here." I told him I had felt the same way. Then another student walked in, unaware of the first student's remark, and she said, "I feel like I just had this class." The first student and I were sort of mystified at that point. Then another student walked in and said, "I feel like I haven't had this class in forever." Well, that was odd. It was odd that he felt the opposite of what the 3 of us were feeling, but perhaps odder that so many of us seemed to feel displaced in time. Then another student walked in, stopped suddenly, and said, "Something feels different in this room." Now, not to dampen the intrigue, but he had missed the previous 2 classes, and during that time, I had some new things up on the walls. I then exclaimed, "What was going on?" and proceeded to review all the strange comments. One of the students replied suddenly, "We might all be dead." Of course, that was hilarious, but it was still intriguing. Who knows? It's one of the things that can't quite be categorized, but really interests me. Maybe there was some upset in the time-space continuum.
Who knows?
You never know. Next one. This one hit a little closer to home. and I'm still questioning my sanity. This evening, my friend Kay texted me that a former student of mine had been arrested for a certain misdemeanor. It was a real surprise to both of us, who had never expected such a thing from this particular student. We texted back and forth for a few minutes, and this was all the while I was in Austin with my husband. I had just finished up at one place, and we were heading to another when Kay and I were texting. I had said nothing to my husband until a few hours later at a friend's house, when the general subject of the crime came up. I turned to my husband and said, "Oh yeah, one of my students." Before I could finish, he said, "I know he..." insert specific crime. "How did you know?" I asked. "He told me," you said. "When?" "Last week." I tried to explain that I had only learned about this, even showing him Kay's text. He insisted that not only had I told him that last week, but the two of us had even gone online to see if it had made the news yet. He even knew what had happened in the very location that it had happened, a detail he couldn't have guessed at all. He said we did the search from his office in his study. We haven't found any trace of our alleged online search at any of our computers. I had no idea where this memory of his came from. I only know that if I had known about the incident, I would have told Kay before going home and telling my husband. The fact that she was the one that told me proves I didn't know until then. Furthermore, I wouldn't have known about the incident until it made the news.
That's weird.
That's weird. There's very specific knowledge that they could not have known.
Dumbass.
Okay. This story happened to Dana's mother-in-law a couple weeks ago. I don't know who Dana is, but that's what it says. So Dana's mother-in-law, whom I'll call Miss B, works in an office as a secretary. One Wednesday, her boss gave her a series of instructions, including mailing a certain document that was signed and ready to go. She ran the errands, and when she returned to the office, everyone was in somewhat of an uproar because nobody had any idea where she had gone. She then explained that she was just running the errands the boss had told her to. The boss claimed to have never given her any of those instructions. Worse, the document that she had just mailed wouldn't be signed and ready until Friday, so she had mailed an incomplete document. The mystery remains unsolved, and this poor lady has only her memory as a witness. It upsets her so much, in fact, she refuses to talk about it. That's scary.
I know.
I would think I was getting dementia or something.
Yeah.
I would start really worrying about my mental health. Next one. There was an incident that I recall that happened to a friend of a very close friend of mine, which resembles the parallel universe story. This lady and her stepdaughter were crossing a busy street with many lanes, and as they entered the final lane before reaching the other side, they realized they were going to be struck by a car. But instead of the car hitting them, they both wound up automatically on the other side of the road. Then they appeared to have hallucinated, seeing themselves as though the vehicle had struck them. She can even describe the interior of the ambulance that she was transported in, and apparently died later. And even though she had never been in an ambulance before. She apparently died in the ambulance later. Both experienced this. She said she wakes up every day unsure if she's living in a dream. As I heard this story 15 years ago, it will not be 100% accurate. It apparently happened another 20 years before I had heard it. I am usually a skeptic, but this came from someone who is not an attention seeker. That's crazy. And the next three are from one person, but they have three different experiences. So first one, I returned home from a 2-day trip out of town to find all the lights in my house off. This was unusual because I normally leave a light on for myself, but thinking I must have forgotten this time, I proceeded to unlock the door and enter my house. I did not notice the door had been pried open because the porch light was off and the door was shut completely. When I got inside, I flipped on the light and found that my ex-boyfriend from 2 years prior had broken into my house. His eyes were glassy and his pupils were tiny, where he had hid by the door waiting for me in the dark. He leapt up from where he had been crouched by the door when I turned the light on and nose to nose with me demanded, "Give me the money that you owe me." It was clear to me that he was on drugs. I replied, "I don't owe you any money. You owe me money." He attacked me, first punching me in the mouth, then tackling me to the ground where he started strangling me. He said, "Do you realize that I could kill you right here and no one would hear your screams?" I was crying and pleading with him to let me up. I would give him some money. Suddenly, as I struggled to breathe, a feeling of deja vu swept over me. I could clearly see another reality where he kept me by the throat and shook me, banging my head into the floor as my body went limp. I could see that reality as if from above. I was also presented with the way to prevent it, to fight him. So I grabbed his testicles with my fist and twisted them and bit his thigh hard enough to pull the skin and draw blood. He begged me to let go of him and fled out the back door, after which I ran to the neighbor's house to call the police. My strategy in mind up until the deja vu feeling was to plead with him and to appeal to him. In that moment, it was shown to me that he was drug crazed and it did not matter how much money I would have given him. I mention this incident because, especially due to the strangulation, the psychological explanation for time slips surely carries a lot of water for this one. I consider this one as a sideways time slip. However, I have had several more, two of which I will describe. Okay. Next one, I was driving down a steep, mountainous stretch of interstate. I was happily jamming to my favorite music. The sky was blue and cloudless. The road stretched long and winding ahead of me. I saw an older model gray pickup truck speed past me and tear into a guardrail, hitting it to bounce off and spin back into the road. There was nothing I could do. I slammed on my brakes, but my car T-boned the pickup truck, and I looked down after the car came to a stop at the deployed airbag and my seatbelt. I could see blood covering my chest, but I wasn't sure where it came from. I wondered if the driver of the pickup truck was okay and looked up. I could see through blood in my eyelashes. I couldn't see the driver, but I could see the crushed pickup truck and a small child in a car seat in the extended cab. The child made direct eye contact with me, and I began to panic that the child's parent was seriously hurt and trying to move out of the seat. Both vehicles were still in the middle of the road, and I was panicking and struggling to get the child because I was afraid someone would come along and hit us. I never made it out of the car, though. Suddenly, I was driving down the same stretch of interstate on the gorgeous cloudless day, and the song that I was playing, that had been playing several minutes before the accident. I clearly remembered what had happened, or would happen, and I knew that if I switched to the far left lane that the truck zipped past me on the right and spun, I would not hit it. I moved to the far left lane, and a few minutes passed without anything happening, so I chalked it up to me being crazy. Suddenly, the older model gray truck zipped past me and hit the guardrail, spinning out into the road. In the far left lane, I went past where the truck spun into the road. I slammed on my brakes as I passed and pulled onto the shoulder. The truck, which had been sideways in the road, pulled onto the shoulder. The driver was fine, but he was calling the police since he hit the guardrail. He was on the shoulder, and he and his child were out of danger, so I continued down the road. Unlike the first incident I wrote about, when this incident happened, there was no psychological trigger explanation because I was in no immediate danger, just enjoying a drive on a sunny day. I consider it a forward time slip and subsequent backward time slip. However, sometimes the time slips happen when there is no danger at all. So this is their third story. It was another beautiful day, and I was out on my front porch playing on my phone. I was curled up in a wicker chair and pretty happy to be wasting a little bit of time doing something quick and fun on my day off. A hand of cards was dealt, and I was playing the hand. Oh, they were playing canasta on their phone. So a hand of cards was dealt, and I was playing the hand when the deja vu feeling came over me. I had already planned how to meld and which cards to discard when suddenly the cards before me were a completely different hand. I checked the score, and it was much higher in my team's favor. I checked the time on my phone, and it was several minutes past the time when I was playing the hand I had planned out. I looked at the chat messages for the game, and there were no chat messages for that missing time, which was unusual because all the players had been chatting with each other. I considered it a forward time slip and thought about asking the other players if they were missing several minutes. I decided not to say anything, though, just in case they might think I was crazy. Our in-game chat conversation continued as normal with just that unexplained several-minute break in the conversation. Excluding the fact that there were multiple people involved, this time slip would fit the dementia explanation of losing time. However, it seems to me that all four of us lost several minutes, as evidenced by several-minute break in the conversation, with the chat returning as if no time had been lost. And those were mine.
Okay. It's time for the witty wrap-up.
Yay, witty wrap-up.
So I did funny Thanksgiving things.
Oh, okay.
One time my mom woke up at 4 a.m. and spent all morning baking and decorating these really beautiful turkey-shaped cookies. Then after hours of laboring over them, she went to take a shower and get ready to head over to my cousin's. We came downstairs and my dog had eaten every last one of them.
Oh my gosh.
I'm so pissed. Oh my God. I couldn't even imagine.
Like, what do you do at that point? You just give up on the day. I'd be like, fuck this, I'm going to bed. I'd be so mad. Oh my God. And like, you couldn't do anything.
I know. It's not like...
You can't beat the dog. You can't remake them. Oh my God. That's horrible.
All that wasted time.
Oh my gosh.
Could have been sleeping.
Seriously.
A Thanksgiving is not complete without our annual food fight. My cousins and I, and sometimes the adults join in, all end up with sweet potatoes and mashed potatoes stuffed in our ears and hair.
Hell no.
That's no
immature.
way.
I hate that.
Yeah. My grandma and I always specialized in making bite-sized Swedish meatballs, and my favorite part was always when I would get to be the first one to taste them. And then I would usually sneak in a few more bites until she realized a dozen were gone before she served them.
What were they?
Swedish meatballs.
Oh.
My grandma and I have always made home fries, and my grandpa, without fail, will eat a pound of them while they're being made, and then yell at us and pretend it's not him eating the food. My dad, who used to be a chef, accidentally added about 3 times as much salt as he was supposed to in the pumpkin pie.
Oh.
We didn't have pumpkin pie for Thanksgiving that year.
I wonder if he added like the sugar or salt. Thought it was sugar.
Maybe. It's not Thanksgiving until I knock over someone's drink. Burnt turkey, frozen turkey, dry turkey, freshly killed turkey. Ew. Best turkey? Turkey made by friends. Every year before dinner, my mom sets aside a plate for each of our dogs with a little bit of everything from the table.
Aw, that's so cute.
One year, my parents and family friends decided to try this hot new Thomas Keller turkey recipe, which included basting the turkey in mayonnaise for moistness. Turns out people should leave Thomas Keller recipes to Thomas Keller, since the whole turkey came out black with the mayonnaise layer charred.
Oh, no.
It tasted pretty good, though, once we scraped the burnt layer off.
Well, that's crazy. I wonder why that happened. I wonder if they put too much on or something.
I don't know. Huh. My mom got this really nice cream tablecloth, and nobody was allowed to spill, and all the kids were warned to be really careful. But then my grandpa got a little drunk and spilled red wine all over it. Might only be funny if you know my grandpa. And my last one. For Thanksgiving in 7th grade, my family had bread rolls shaped like pumpkins. They were really tough to cut. So while trying to slice through the bread roll, I accidentally stabbed myself with a butter knife. And it bled for literally hours.
Oh,
it totally ruined my Thanksgiving, and I still have a scar on my left middle finger from the whole incident.
A butter knife?
That was not my last one.
Oh.
Thanksgiving weekend means the end of football season, aka the best rival football games and the best snacks. Everyone piles into the family room to watch the University of Michigan versus Ohio State game. Sorry, Duke. Oh, stupid. Once my aunt cooked the turkey with the plastic still inside and almost poisoned the whole family. After being the passive-aggressive family we are, we eventually laughed about it.
Oh, that sucks.
One year, my uncle ate an entire icebox cake after Thanksgiving dinner. Now we make 2 so he can have his own. Once my Grammy was sold a frozen turkey, and she was going to do a drive-by and throw it at the store. A few years ago, my family and I drove 8 hours from New York to University of Virginia to have Thanksgiving dinner in my brother's apartment. Rather than cooking there or buying some ingredients in Virginia, my mom cooked absolutely everything in the few days before. Stuck a fully cooked turkey, Tupperware full of appetizers and side dishes, and a few pies and desserts into the trunk of our car. It was literally Thanksgiving on wheels. I'm the only vegetarian in my family and was extremely picky when I was little, so my family made me a special dish instead of turkey. I thought it was super gourmet, but it turns out it is only baked spaghetti with ketchup. Sounds disgusting, but it's actually delicious. I still eat it as my Thanksgiving meal now.
Oh, that's cute.
This is my last one.
Okay.
One year, my aunt bought a pre-cooked turkey from the store, brought it home, put it in a pan in the oven, and pretended she made it. Everyone believed her until several Thanksgivings later when she confessed after one too many glasses of wine.
That's great. I love that. Was that it?
That was it.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Send in your stories. We need them. goalsnightoutpodcast@gmail.com. You can look us up on Facebook. Request to join the group. Rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen, and we will talk to you next week.
Later.
Bye.